Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. Your host, Red. I got a video today from Nate the lawyer. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that. Ciao time.
In 2024, the WNBA is estimated to bring in $200 million in revenue. Just for comparison, the NBA is expected to earn $13 billion. The WNBA has historically lost around $10 million per season. Some estimates have said that the league is going to lose about $50 million.
The WNBA attendance, not good. The WNBA ratings, not good. The WNBA salaries, not good. It's not working because you, the consumer, don't want it, and I'm never going to cover anything because I feel it's a movement.
That's taking away from what we should be talking about, which is equal pay. Here's the thing. This cannot be done. It is not on the oppressed to fix oppression. It has to be done with allyship, which is where someone like Draymond Green, a man, comes into a space that affects predominantly women. But the thing about being an ally is when you come into that space, you should be listening first, not talking first, because there is no one who understands better what these women are going through than these women. If you come into this space and say, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to take this feedback of what you've been living.
We don't care. We gave you the league, as in the men gave you the league. They should be able to dictate whatever they want. They're the ones that are paying for it.
And what you've been experiencing, and then I'm going to then talk and then offer my ideas, perhaps even away from Twitter, because then it comes off like you're talking at somebody who's been going through something that's incredibly difficult for years and years and years. Then maybe we can get to the point where women aren't making 80 cents to every dollar that a man makes. And by the way, that's white women.
I'm really tired of seeing them complain about the lack of pay because they're doing themselves a disservice by just complaining.
They're not just complaining.
Huh?
They're not just complaining, really.
But they are, because they're not laying out steps that they can take to change that. Because the people that can change it, they're just going to continue to say, well, the revenue isn't there.
Some new questions tonight about the future of the WNBA, players' contracts after this year's seasons. And what will happen there, especially with one of the most popular players in the league now threatening the possibility of a strike. There's talks towards a collective bargaining agreement happening now between the Players Association and the league. And Chicago Sky forward
Should we just let them not play the season? Who cares? We save money. We don't have to rent out all these spaces.
Angel Reese says she wants in on those negotiations. Listen.
I gotta get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, yeah, they don't give us, if y'all don't give us what we want, like, we said no.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about the WNBA versus the NBA wage gap. We're going to talk about what the wage gap is, how much money each league actually brings in, and the arguments for equal pay on both sides. And at the end of the video, you get to make the decision. Who do you believe has the best argument?
Shout outs to Nate.
All right, so before we start with the numbers, let's get into how the WNBA came to being.
In 1996, the NBA and its then commissioner David Stern launched a women's league, the WNBA. The men's league was going through a huge boom with Michael Jordan at the helm, and a women's league played in the summertime would provide a full year of basketball and would also help grow the sport internationally. The NBA and its owners would own the WNBA.
It survived because of the great support the NBA has given it over many years. So there's a reason why the WNBA is the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the country. Think about this, by double any other.
WNBA team owners received 50% stake in 2002. In 2022, the league raised $75 million from a group of investors, the league's first ever outside investment and the largest in women's sports history. They received 16% stake in return, leaving only 42% left for WNBA and its owners. But this also means only 42% of national-level revenue, like TV and sponsorship deals, trickles down to the WNBA owners. The remaining goes to the NBA and its owners, 5 of which are also WNBA owners, and the outside investor group. The current TV deal is worth about $60 million in 2024. Only about $2 million of that goes to each team.
Now, I know there were...
Damn! Only $2 million goes to each team. Like, how can they afford the players at the salaries?
A lot of numbers thrown at you, but let's break this down. pretty simple. All right, so to understand this issue, you have to understand how both the NBA and the WNBA distribute its money. Let's start with the NBA. For the NBA, you have the owners and you have the players, and they take 50% of basketball-related revenue. Now, in 2023, that revenue was $10.5 billion, and they've had an agreement since 1983 that they would share revenue 50-50. Now, our next step is to go to basketballreference.com. They list every NBA contract for the 2023-2024 season, and there were 496 contracts, as you can see on the screen. Now, if you just add up the money for the 2024-2025 season to see how much the players get paid, it should be around $5 billion, and I did the math, it's exactly $490,614. That's how much the NBA paid the players. So the NBA was simple, players and owners. But the WNBA gets really, really complicated. First, you got the WNBA players, they get a percentage. Then you have the WNBA owners. They also get a percentage. Along with that, you have the NBA owners who also get a percentage of WNBA revenue because they put in between $250 to $300 million to keep the league going this long. And you have the outside investment group who spent $75 million to get 16% of basketball related revenue. So these are the people who must get paid by the WNBA if it ever generates any revenue. And this is how the percentages are broken down. The WNBA players,
I mean, the people that pay for all of the expenses should be getting paid first.
And owners take 42% of basketball related revenue. The NBA, who put in that $250 to $300 million, they get 42% of basketball related revenue. And those investors who put in $75 million, they get 16% of basketball related revenue. Now, if you split it out, it turns out that the players for the WNBA can only really get a max of 21% of basketball related revenue. And remember, that's in contrast to the NBA players who get 50% of basketball related revenue. So let's say the WNBA made $10 billion like the NBA. How would that look? Well, in that case, the players would get $2.1 billion. Now remember, the men were getting $5 billion, but the women would only get $2.1 billion. $3 billion less than the men because of how everyone has to be paid. The owners for the WNBA would get $2.1 billion. The NBA would get $4.2 billion, but that's because they invested almost $1/3 billion into the league. And then that private investor group would also get $1.6 billion. So bottom line, in terms of percentage of revenue, the most the WNBA players can make is about 21 to 22%, while the NBA players make 50%. Now, this leads us into our first argument by WNBA players and their advocates.
That's a lot more in depth than I even imagined of how salary and all that stuff worked. So math is mathin' though.
That they should get about 50% of basketball related revenue.
What's being lost in all that noise is the actual point. So let's unpack what the WNBA wage conversation is about. No, they don't want Steph Curry money. Well, they don't not want Steph Curry money, but that's just because Steph could pay the salary of every woman in the WNBA and still have enough left over to sign Le'Veon Bell. Anyone can make the argument that a younger, smaller, less popular league can't pay the same amount as the NBA. What's harder is arguing they can't pay the same percentage, which is what WNBA players are trying to tell you.
They recognize the difference in how much money each league brings in, but they do want a higher percentage of their league's revenue. Remember, NBA players get about 50% of what the league calls basketball related.
Again, it was given to you. It's like you bite the hand that feeds. Like they fed you, and now you're more hungry because you saw they fed the other people, the men, more meat and stuff because the men do more work, bring in more money, and now you want the same thing, and now you're attacking the people that feed you in the first place.
Income. A Forbes report last year estimated that WNBA players only get about 25% of BRI.
Well, Rachel, 25% is actually saying it too nice. It's actually closer to around 22%.
Yeah, and the big conversation about WNBA salaries and all of that's been going on. What is from a player and from players in general, your teammates, what is that opinion and how do you guys handle all those conversations?
We are not asking to get paid what the men get paid. We're asking to get paid the same percentage of revenue shared.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Got it. So that's a huge misconception.
also dumb, right? Because they don't understand how it works.
That's a huge misconception.
Got it. Okay, yeah, because every video is like, oh, this person gets paid this person gets paid that, right?
So I want to be really clear about that. Like, I don't think I should get paid the same as LeBron.
Right.
But the percentage of revenue, like.
And now you know why the WNBA can't get paid the same percentage as the men, which is 50%, because all of these stakeholders are involved. It's not just the players and the owners, it's the players, the owners, the NBA investors who put 250 to 300 million into the league, and the outside investors who pumped in $75 million to the league. All those people get a cut of the revenue. And as you can clearly see, the argument for a larger percentage of revenue is one that is ignorant at best, because based on the way the league is set up, the most they can get is 21%, unless the owners or the NBA or those outside investors give up some of their equity. Now, one thing you will not hear a lot is that the WNBA has never turned a profit. It's always had a deficit. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me define some terms for you. First, I'm talking about revenue. Now, revenue is the amount of money a business generates. Then you have expenses, the cost incurred to run that business, rent, salaries, hiring people, that type of stuff. Then you have profit, which is essentially your revenue, the money you brought in, minus their expenses, the money you had to spend to generate that revenue. Now, if expenses are higher than revenue, you have a deficit. If revenue is higher than expenses, then you have profit. So this chart shows you the 2023 finances for the NBA and the WNBA side by side. As you can see here at the top, the NBA generated $10.58 billion in revenue, while the women's game only generated $200 million in revenue. But when you take into account expenses for the women's game, that revenue number actually drops to $40 million in the hole. In 2023, the female game lost $40 million. And remember, this was the WNBA's best season ever, and they still lost $40 million. Now, to be absolutely fair, they were projected to lose $50 million, so $40 million is actually a win. Now, on the plus side, the WNBA just signed a new TV rights deal for $2.2 billion over 11 years, so it comes out to about $200 million a year.
The WNBA reportedly securing a new round of media rights deals with NBC, Amazon, and Disney, the parent company of ABC, worth about $2.2 billion over 11 years, about $200 million a year. This new media package, a massive increase, 6 times bigger than its previous deal.
Now, with this $200 million a year, it should allow the WNBA to be profitable for the first time in its history. Nice. So out of that $200 million TV deal, the players are going to see about $42 million of that money. The owners get another $42 million, the NBA gets its $84 million, and the investors get their $32 million, and that's each year. Now, think about this. The WNBA players right now only get about $16 million a year in salaries combined. All WNBA salaries, when you add them all up, comes out to about $16 million. So now they're going to have another $42 million on top of that they can dole out to the players. So based on the numbers and the structure of the league, the WNBA players should be able to get more money with this next round of collective bargaining. Now, they won't be able to get the same percentage of revenue as the men are getting because, again, the structure of the league, but they are...
This actually helps explain a lot. Thank you, Nate. Like, I didn't understand what was going on exactly, but this really educated me.
Well on their way to getting more money.
You ain't wrong, Nate. They shouldn't be paid the same. They're not the same type of league. They don't fund themselves. They didn't create themselves, right? So when there's investors involved, I hate to say it, investors get paid first, as much as I don't really like how that kind of works overall too. But it makes sense because they put up the money, right? They put up all that shebang money that nobody else had to be able to get you started. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that, and I can give it.